The Petersburg Poltergeist. The footage begins with a stark black screen and the words, end quote. The following is recovered footage from an incident that occurred in Petersburg, West Virginia, in the summer of 2023. Authorities have not disclosed the full details of the case, end quote. A faint, distorted whisper can be heard beneath the hum of static, but the words are indecipherable. The whisper grows louder, then cuts abruptly, leaving a moment of unsettling silence before the video begins. Day 1. The camera pans shakily across an old colonial home nestled in a tangled thicket of woods just outside Petersburg, West Virginia. The house is a relic of the past, brick walls cracked with age, ivy climbing toward a sagging roof, and windows darkened by grime. The sky above is heavy and overcast, lending an oppressive air to the scene. As the wind rustles through the trees, it almost sounds like faint whispers. Three friends stand in the foreground: Maggie, a spirited amateur paranormal investigator; Chris, her childhood friend and reluctant cameraman; and Jen, the skeptic whose dry humor often borders on sarcasm. Maggie grins nervously at the camera. "All right, guys. We're here to investigate the Petersburg Poltergeist." She gestures toward the house. "Local legend says this place is cursed. People vanish. Weird noises. Lights in the woods. You name it." Jen snorts. "Classic ghost story. Probably just rats and bad plumbing." Chris smirks. "Then why don't you go in first?" The trio laughs, but it's clear none of them are entirely at ease. As they approach the house, the camera catches fleeting glimpses of the surrounding woods. The trees seem unnaturally close, their gnarled branches like skeletal hands reaching toward the group. In the distance, a faint shape, human-like but distorted, flickers between the trees, unnoticed by the trio. Day 2. The night vision casts the interior of the house in an eerie green glow. The living room is a time capsule of decay. Peeling wallpaper reveals layers of age-old paint, a tattered armchair slumps in the corner, and a broken chandelier dangles precariously from the ceiling. A faint, sour smell lingers in the air. The friends set up camp, their sleeping bags arranged in a circle. Maggie adjusts the camera on a tripod while Chris lights a lantern. As they chat, a faint tapping noise echoes from above. It's rhythmic, like a deliberate knock-knock, and it pauses unnaturally between beats. "Did you hear that?" Maggie whispers, turning toward the staircase. The camera zooms in, capturing the empty darkness of the upper floor. "Old house," Jen dismisses, though her eyes flick toward the ceiling. The tapping grows louder, more deliberate, as if something, or someone, is pacing just out of sight. The sound descends the walls, moving closer. Maggie grips the camera, her breathing audible. A sudden bang startles them. The camera jerks to focus on the front door, which now hangs slightly ajar. Chris steps forward hesitantly, but the woods beyond are impenetrable shadows. The faint sound of a woman's laughter, cold and mirthless, floats through the air. Day 3. The footage is erratic, the camera's movements frantic. Chris speaks in hushed, panicked tones as he films the empty sleeping bag where Maggie had been. "She's gone," he says, his voice shaking. "We woke up, and she wasn't here. Her stuff's still, everything's still here." Jen's scream cuts through the silence. Chris rushes to her, the camera bouncing wildly. In the hallway, scratched into the plaster, is a chilling message, end quote, "She's with me now," end quote. The words seem fresh, still dripping with what looks like dark red paint, or blood. "This isn't funny," Jen yells, her voice trembling. "Maggie. If this is a joke." The scratching noise resonates, louder than before. It seems to emanate from the walls themselves, surrounding them. Chris pans the camera, catching a fleeting shadow darting across the end of the hallway. The shadow is unnaturally elongated, its movements jerky and inhuman. "Who's there?" he shouts, his voice cracking. There's no answer, only a faint, wet gurgling sound that fades into silence. Day 4. Chris and Jen are visibly unhinged. Their clothes are disheveled, their faces pale and streaked with sweat. They've barricaded themselves in one of the upstairs bedrooms, the camera propped on a nightstand. Jen's hands tremble as she hugs her knees. Shadows dance across the walls, though the room's single light bulb is stationary. "We need to leave," she whispers. "We should never have come here." Chris shakes his head. "The woods, something's out there." It's watching us. We're safer here. The door rattles violently, cutting off their conversation. The sound escalates to a thunderous pounding. A guttural voice rasps from the other side, "Let me in." "Who's there?" Chris demands, his voice a mixture of anger and fear. The voice responds, distorted and mocking, "You are." The lights flicker. The pounding stops abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence. Chris hesitates, then moves the barricade to open the door. The hallway is empty, but the camera captures faint, bloody footprints leading down the stairs. A low, deep growl emanates from the shadows at the far end of the hall. Final entry. The footage resumes in the woods. Chris is alone, his breaths ragged. The camera shakes as he films his own face, streaked with tears and dirt. The woods are eerily silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves that seem to echo unnaturally. "They're gone," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maggie. Jen. I don't know where. I don't know what this thing is." The camera cuts out briefly, then flickers back on. Behind Chris, a shadowy figure stands, barely visible but unmistakably human-shaped. Its edges shimmer and distort as though it doesn't fully belong in this world. Its head tilts unnaturally to one side, and faint whispers grow louder, forming fragmented, sinister words. Chris doesn't notice. He turns, the camera capturing his horrified expression. "It's not the house," he says. "It's the woods. It's everywhere." The screen goes black, followed by one final frame.
Disclaimer. This story is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, events, and incidents are either the products of the author's imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. The content of this story is intended for entertainment purposes only and does not reflect the views, beliefs, or opinions of any real individuals or organizations. Listener discretion is advised.